I want people here to take founders, VC questions very seriously.
Yeah.
Not because we think we are more relevant than any other industries. It's because these people are the ones that have the adequate agility, exposure, and access to really try to get where we need to be.
This episode is brought to you by EFG Hermes One, your one app for investing in more than 35 stock markets worldwide. Welcome again to What I Did Next from A&T Media. I'm Malak Fuad. We're continuing today my conversation with Karima Hakim on this episode. We're talking about the evolution of the private sector in Egypt and Africa, and her work specifically with Plug and Play. Since you began working in the entrepreneurial space and the VC space in Egypt with Plug and Play, and even before with Fawdy, what are your perceptions of the evolution of the private sector in the last 10 years and this environment that I'm feeling that there's quite a bit of momentum behind now? What are your thoughts about this?
Okay, so maybe since I became more of a part of the community of the tech entrepreneurship, so just to make sure that we're like really coining down the technology aspect of it, I've seen the evolution obviously become they have to be part of the conversation. So it's a fait accompli. They need a seat on the table. Now they are driving actually the development level of the country, how the attractiveness of Egypt is becoming for Africa, for the Middle East as well. So now I don't think we need to convince anyone that technology entrepreneurs, specifically the ones that are building the digital infrastructure of the company, are if not core to the conversation that we should have on a macroeconomic level for Egypt. I think we need to remove a lot of misconceptions that tech founders are young people fresh off the boat from university. Most of them, and the ones that are succeeding today, have at least 10 years of experience in companies. They are young, so even if they have 10 or 15 years of experience, most of them are still under a certain age. This is one of the first misconceptions. The second one is that they are all working publicly. So people know about the founders that are building in the public eye, but a lot of the solutions that are being built today are happening in some sort of stealth mode.
And do you mean by that in like an informal economy or just under the radar?
Not at all. Under radar, for sure. Also, non-customer interfacing brands.
Yes.
So a lot of it
B2B.
are B2B aggregators, infrastructure builders. So even if you're using your Bank Al Ahli app, some other solution may be powering some parts of it, or another company that is working to protect all your data from a cybersecurity level across all data centers. So they're really making a difference. They're making a lot of money. They're raising serious funds.
But for me, what I find really interesting from a sort of a bigger picture point of view is a country like Egypt, we have such a massive young population. You would know the statistic. I don't even know what the statistic now is. How many under 30s do we have?
Over 50% of the population is under 30.
Even if they're not the ones creating the businesses, they are the ones that are benefiting, and they're the ones who are being employed as well by
consumers.
Them. And they're consumers.
Yes.
You know, there's a big, there is this thing that people have been talking about the third world for generations, about leapfrogging from one kind of industry or one kind of infrastructure level to the next.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing here, right? We're doing that in a strong way. Not just Egypt, but specifically Africa too.
Definitely. Well, you said third word, now it's emerging.
Emerging. It's the wrong
but we always fall into that because narratives are very important.
They are.
And this is literally what you're realizing now. Like the Western markets, or let's say more mature markets, are aging population markets, and in the same time their talent pool is literally
dwindling,
leaving to other markets as well, because they're heavily regulated, they're heavily taxed. So a lot of the young people feel like they need to be working remotely from Bali, for example. So this is something to note. But But again, the emerging side of things allows us to become, let's say, an energy basket to the rest of the world. So we can start exporting talent while they are here, not necessarily they can work remotely. We can start exporting cheaper energy. We can start, and by cheaper energy, I meant to say that specifically because technology consumes a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
Hosting is so
Of
expensive.
course.
So we are becoming much more advantages to
But
investors.
there are also old school advantages. Geographically, we're in an amazing place.
Well, today we're no longer, because geographically we're next to wars. But
Well,
I mean,
yes, but if you forget the wars for a minute,
yeah.
and if you think in a vacuum, we are in the middle of the world, right? So we can service Europe, we can service Asia, we can service the US. Plus, we have a very educated population with languages, with know-how. I mean, 20 years ago, Egypt was the center for the call center type of business, right? And that philosophy still applies today.
Yes.
For that know-how, we have it.
It's called outsourcing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
outsourcing is one of the biggest mandates that the Ministry of ICT has. Next to the telecom mandates, you have the outsourcing of tech talent, the offshoring concept as well. So how can big companies start having offshore centers or start building these centers of excellence where they employ a lot of Egyptians who are working in technology, developers, AI engineers, who are now gonna service other companies abroad via a model of outsourcing companies. So it's very lucrative for the country because these big companies pay a lot of taxes, employ a lot of people, but also for the technology talents to get competitive salaries, and also not just the talent pool itself getting knowledge sharing from working on big projects. However, I will say there is a however, and I don't know how to answer it, because maybe it's just an opinion. I think there needs to be some sort of control and oversight, which is happening already.
You mean like a regulatory body?
It's already regulated, but I mean at least some oversight on how these companies compensate their employees, how are they attracting them, etc. Because we still need to have let's say a lot of talent available for the homegrown solutions, and these guys cannot afford the salaries that the big offshoring companies are doing. So the control and oversight shouldn't happen at
the expense of the domestic market.
At the expense of what I meant to say is that the control and oversight shouldn't happen at the level of outsourcing and offshoring. It should happen at the level of how can small startups, Egyptian SMEs and startups, get better incentives to hire talents locally. So that, for example, it can be some tax breaks. It can be if your first 100 tech employees will not be taxed at that rate, so that they can make a net income and cost them the same as the global company.
Are there funds that are dedicated to that? Are there local funds that are working just in this space of trying to get the startups, that homegrown, smaller scale business up and running? I know there are a few funds, but is that enough, or should it be a government-led initiative?
The funds invest in companies. So the funds, they have a mandate to get equity. So it's not a grant, for example. But so the funds are doing what funds do. They give companies
in exchange for equity.
In exchange for equity money. But I'm talking on a nationwide ecosystem level. Not all companies will be able to find funds. So some of them are going to use what they have raised from family and friends, so they're not going to have so much liquidity. So at least from the get-go, let's not give them that disadvantage. So they might not be going to raise money to be able to afford talent, but at least from the get-go, let's not make it so uncompetitive for them to acquire talent. But again, the other side would tell you, but Egypt there's plenty of talent. But the good talent is important. So we don't want the top tier talent to only go and serve the outsourcing company.
Sure.
So there's a juste milieu.
There has to be a nuanced approach as well to this.
Yes.
Do you think there's like a CSR component that could help here, or is that not necessarily the approach?
Okay, again, and I'm not attacking the way you're approaching
I
it,
don't know.
but
I'm
again,
asking.
the bringing CSR in this conversation is exactly why there needs to be some sort of misconception removal. It
Okay.
is not CSR to do this.
Okay.
If we don't catch up on this, we will literally be, as you said, it's a nation's leapfrog situation. So we will be left behind at the biggest disruptive times, which is when AI comes to be. It's not come. It's AI. AI is not gonna come. Here. It's already here, but it's just the way it's going to manifest in terms of jobs, in terms of infrastructure, security, etc.
So, from your perspective, this has to be approached from a legislative point of view.
A legislative point of view, and also from, again, looking at the space as a make it or break it space. It's not a space where, they're young people, let us invest in their development. No. These young people are the ones investing their time into making sure that our development is not set to backwards.
Yeah, interesting. And this is very much forms the heart of what you're doing. Is that right? That's very much part of your work with Plug and Play.
Yes, I want people here to take founders, VC questions very seriously. Not because we think we are more relevant than any other industries. It's because these people are the ones that have the adequate agility, exposure, and access to really try to get where we need to be faster than our neighbors, maybe.
When we come back after the break, Karima tells me more about her work over the last couple of years with Plug and Play in both Egypt and Africa. This episode is brought to you by EFG Hermes One, your one app for investment across more than 35 stock markets worldwide. With EFG Hermes One, you can buy and sell orders in real time for immediate execution across multiple global markets. You can keep track of your favorite stocks by creating and customizing multiple watch lists, and make informed investment decisions with their advanced technical analysis tools to study market trends and investor behavior. So supercharge your financial journey and download the EFG Hermes One app on the Apple App Store and on Google Play and start investing today. Talk to me about the two women who played an important mentor-like role in your life. One of them is Manal, that you mentioned.
So actually, Manal, so it maybe not meant, like, Manal is definitely not just a mentor, but she's like the mom of my best friend that knows me since I was a kid, literally. So there's a mentor, there's a mom, there's a second mom kind of vibe for her. But I think the women that you're talking about are women that I came across recently in my life. So it was not a person that gave me an opportunity. It was more a person that I found
on your journey,
on my journey, and and they don't replace my closest best friends, because I'm like, I owe my mental health, my sanity to the closest women in my life, who are my closest friends from school. Just in case they watch this,
anyone's listening.
No.
You're not
they
replaced.
know very
You're
well.
Not replaced.
Yeah, they're not replaced. But these are two women. So one of them I met actually a year and a half ago, 2 years. She's not Egyptian. She's Canadian. I met her in Dubai, and we became very close.
And you just connected.
We just connected through our husbands,
right?
And it's crazy, but we say that we met soul sisters kind of vibes, and we're still very much in touch. And she keeps me in check whenever I have some questions, even if it's just emotional, personal, sometimes professional. She's very accomplished as well, and is a bit older than me, so has some experience. And the other woman is actually Egyptian. I met her in Fawri when I was there. So she got recruited for a senior role in Fawri at the same time, and I ended up working also very closely with her. I reported to her at some point, and
and you've kept the connection.
she left, I followed her in a way, kind of way. It just did not make sense.
Yeah,
like I love and I still work with Fawri
Sure.
until today. But at the time, she made sense of my role in Fawri a bit more, and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to work a little bit longer with her. But then. She even moved outside of the country now. That's why she's no longer here.
I find that women today, your age and maybe a little older even, are so much better at supporting other women. I was unlucky enough to have 3 female bosses when I was sort of in early career phase, 2 in the UK, 1 here. And they were not at all supportive of other women. And it really makes for a very difficult working environment. Today, I find it's its own ecosystem, and there's a support system, and there's a paying it forward. And it's across industries. I find it across countries. There's just suddenly this sisterhood, which has materialized. And I think a lot of it has to do with more awareness. I think social media plays a part, that women are more aware of their own power. They're more aware that by helping others, it doesn't diminish you. Whereas my generation and older didn't see it that way because they were carving out a place for themselves in such a male-dominated world. It was so much harder. It's a very different environment today. And I think when you have some female mentors or even friends at work, it's a completely different ballgame.
So I see exactly what you mean. I wouldn't say, again, I'm not saying this is the truth, but maybe women weren't mean because they were fighting for their survival. They were just mean. Like it was that carving, because we are still carving a name for ourselves.
Yeah, but Karima, I think from how I read it is that these were women who broke glass ceilings at their time, and they were surrounded by men. They were having to do thousands of things at once to get ahead.
Leadership was different at the time. Leadership and inclusive leadership was different.
For sure.
But until today, we're not like we are probably even this at the same level, from maybe not on paper, but how men or other senior people perceive women, specifically in tech. So I'm talking about being also in a sector that's
very male.
So I think it's also the concept of leadership just changed, and women realized that leading as leading the way men lead does not make them feel better or sound better, because they end up now being shamed. Oh, she's bossy, she's crazy, but actually you can just be a shepherd. You can be a discreet leader that is inclusive, and being more genuine now actually sells.
But I also think that women bring out a completely different kind of feelings in their team than men. The femininity of women brings out sometimes the best in a team. And I think women are leaning into that now much more than before. And they're letting that sort of be out there on the table much more than before. Before, that was all it was all hidden.
Yeah.
It wasn't allowed to come out.
I'll tell you something that happened to me a few years ago. So one of my closest friends also, so I'm still very close to my lycée friends, which is we take pride to this, because a lot
my
of
closest friends are from school too.
Yeah, so he once sat down to me, and this, I remember, hurt my feelings. I actually cried, and he was, he's allowed to be philosophical and critical sometimes.
This is a friend from school.
This is one of my closest friends from school. His name is Hussein, so just he knows himself.
مش هنقول اسمه بالكامل.
ايوه لا بالظبط. تلاقيش هو عارف نفسه كمان. And he knows he made me cry because I cried in front of him. So he was trying to compliment me, but he's like, you know what, Karima, you bring masculine energy to the room. And I'm like, and all in my head, I'm like, you have to lead like a woman, not like a man. He's like, yeah, and maybe that's why at work people love you so much and respect you, and you're killing it. And we went back and forth, and I kept telling him, no, I don't bring masculine energy, I bring my feminine energy, because this is actually me being a woman. So and after he really pushed back, and at the end of the day I felt like I'm preaching to who, yani.
Yes.
If people see me
Yeah.
as masculine, then
Yeah,
so
yeah,
be
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
But it really hurt my feelings.
It struck you, Kaman.
It struck me. It hurt my feelings. I even yelled at him. I was a bit mean to him myself. So like my defense mechanism kicked in, and I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
So I think it's hard. Leadership is hard, and if you're too soft, if you're too harsh, if you're so at the end of the day, being a good person, being empathetic while having usually some emotional intelligence, and women tend to have
absolutely. There's a sort
stronger
of an
emotional
instinctive feel
بالضبط.
for what's happening in the room. Yeah.
بالضبط.
Tell me about Plug and Play, and specifically your role within it.
My role as the country director of Plug and Play in Egypt is to one, invest more in Egypt, build the capacity of the tech companies so that they can become global.
And just to cut you off for a second, Karima, this is an initiative that has the backing of the government as well, right? They have a say in Plug and Play?
No. So let me finish
How does
this
that
point.
work?
I'll
Okay.
explain.
Okay.
So what we do is that we do this, we enable and grow these companies through programs, and we connect them to corporates that will open up their markets, and this is as Egypt. As Africa, because a year ago I got in the second role of not only being the country director, so I'm still country director for Egypt, but I'm co-director Africa. So on Africa, I'm looking to build more Egypt use cases. For Egypt specifically, the initial arrival of the company Plug and Play Egypt came with the backing of the government. So the Egyptian government, the Ministry of ICT specifically, through its agency, development agency ITIDA, and the National Bank of Egypt, they sponsor a program and brought Plug and Play to develop smart cities and artificial intelligence.
That's one track of your company.
That's only one track
only.
So this is one track. The other tracks, I've worked with private sector companies such as PepsiCo, Vodafone. We've worked with Egyptian companies. We're actually collaborating a lot with companies like Al Arabi Group. So we actually work with the local ecosystem, nothing to do with government, to also make sure that we're connecting the dots. So we're connecting the decision makers in corporate with really strong founders who can create products together, who can also find efficiencies and help these companies really be competitive in a very technical and fast-paced world.
And this work has made you very visible on the regional, maybe even international conference scene. So you're attending a lot of conferences, you're speaking on behalf of the company. What is that bringing to you personally, and how is that helping? What are the platforms you're interfacing with?
I'll tell you something, and we'll link it to the generosity part. So one of the things that put me on the international space is me trying to help one of the conference organizers launch the Africa GITEX. So the GITEX conference, when they launched 3.5 years ago in Africa with a formula called GITEX Africa in Morocco, our company Plug and Play Morocco, to whom I'm affiliated and I oversee as well, was one of the companies that were helping the team identify the speakers, etc. So I went the extra mile and identified more than potential speakers. I convinced very big names to join, and I ended up, offering my moderating services, which they appreciated a lot.
So that was the beginning of it for you.
So so that was the beginning for me on the international quote scene. I think maybe one time I did a few other events, but they were not as big as GITEX.
GITEX is huge, of course.
GITEX is very big, yes. But I think also I recognize this I have is that I'm a good speaker, public speaker, and maybe burn taught me to speak to 8 strangers or 7 strangers 5
But
times a
there's
week.
an intrinsic confidence there.
It's an intrinsic confidence. It's also stage presence and managing and moderating conversations.
It's focus
So
groups.
and
It's
honestly,
back to focus groups.
and it's not just that. I don't want to be a speaker. I don't want to be a keynote giving a session. I actually want to drive conversation. I like moderating and leading on that
and
level.
Connecting the conversation amongst everybody.
And I must tell you also what the time I really felt accomplished doing so is when I was asked to address the presidential visit.
President Emmanuel Macron was in Egypt last year, in 2024, towards the end of the year.
No, it was not last year. It was in last April.
It was this year.
Yeah, 2025.
And what was that? What was your? Why were you presenting to him?
So that's a very good question. I still ask myself the same. But this is again I know why. But my therapist told me stop having that imposter syndrome. Just say I know exactly why. They asked me I'm great. The story is interesting because so they called me, asked me, they're like, yeah, the presidential there's a presidential visit, it's very confidential, and we want you to help us find maybe 15 young people who speak French or have an affiliation to France and work in tech. And I went all out. I got a few names, etc. And then some schedule change happened and they called me. They're like, we're so sorry. We just wanted to let you know that the round table might not happen, which is natural for these things to have a change of agenda, the presidential visit, etc. However, we have something else for you. So it came through that conversation.
What was that something else? What was it?
So the 3 biggest verticals that the bilateral relationships will focus on is health, energy, and tech. So the event was a big forum.
Yeah.
The forum went throughout the day. The first parts of the day were panels. So leaders, the ministers were there. So there was some context and content. And then the last 40 to 45 minutes were the visits of the 2 presidents. So they wanted a wrap-up of الخلاصة إيه. So they asked 6 people, 2 from each sector, 1 Egyptian and 1 French, leader of their respective industries, blah, 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 to give a 2-minute address to the president summarizing the state of
That's a big deal,
ecosystem.
Karima. That's a big deal.
I know.
So you were the tech Egypt person.
I was the tech Egypt person, although I was challenged by the Egyptian government.
What do you mean?
At first.
Why?
Because they're right, absolutely in their place. They're like, but she's heading an American company in Egypt, which is not wrong.
Which technically is correct.
Is not wrong. It's an international company before anything. So just to be, it's an international company before American. This is in our DNA, given our open innovation. And of course, Silicon Valley plays a huge role, but it's important to note that. However, I made a case. So I wrote a small note to the deciding person, and I told them, actually, Plug and Play Egypt is a homegrown. For me, I'm talking on behalf of the Egyptian ecosystem.
Makes sense.
I did not say word
makes sense.
Plug and Play. I mentioned the work we have been doing with the government, which was also fair, because the minister himself was sitting there, and he deserves to see that we do recognize
and that you're visible.
Yes,
like the work you're doing is visible. 100%. It's important.
But I even said it. I'm like, I speak today on behalf of that ecosystem, and this is the service that I want to do all the time for my fellow stakeholders who are the founders, who are the other investors, who are the other enablers, who are the internationals who want to invest in Egypt but don't know how.
You know, a part of your job, I think, and it's a very important part of anyone running a business, is visibility. If you're not seen to be doing it in today's world, you're just not doing it.
And always keeping the nuance of making sure that you're visible, but the work shows as well. Because again, you can fall into the trap, and I've fallen not in a trap, but I decided there's no way I can do all these conferences, do all these events. So I really took care of making sure my team is well equipped to also speak, and people have the practice,
the foundation has
the
to
foundations
be there,
to go and learn as well.
Great, that's it.
Thank
you, Karima.
Thank you, Malak.
I loved it.
I loved it too.
Oh, wow.